Forbes Books presents The Sky's the Limit with host Dee Brown, the president and CEO of the P3 Group, the nation's largest minority, public-private partnership real estate developer. Here's Dee.
Thanks for joining me for the first episode of my podcast. I'm incredibly honored to have Warren Stevens as my first guest. Warren is one of the most successful American businessmen in the last 35 years. He's the chairman, president, and CEO of the Little Rock-based investment bank, Stevens Inc. And on his watch, his company has grown from a single location to offices around the globe. Warren, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Dee. I'm delighted to join you, and I appreciate you inviting me.
Absolutely. And myself, as well as my listeners, I'm sure are excited to learn more about you and Stevens Inc. So if you don't mind, start with just giving us a little overview of what you do there at Stevens Inc.
Well, sure. We are an investment banking firm that's focused on small and mid-cap companies in various industries. And we do all the things that you would think about investment banks doing just for smaller type companies, but we're provide investment banking services. We do research. We have equity sales and trading. We also have a very significant private client effort. We also have, it's somewhat separate, an institutional money management group. And then, of course, where we all started was in public finance. And that was the origin of the firm. And we are still very much involved in that business. We have Stevens Insurance, which is a brokerage division, and we also have, and makes us somewhat unusual, a very active private equity arm where we invest our own money in various mainly private companies, although every now and again there'll be a public company. That's pretty rare. We're different in the sense that we don't manage any outside money in that effort. It's just the family money and then various partnerships of the Stevens employees that are investors in that. So if you go back, you'd have to go back a long way. This really makes us not an investment bank, but more of a merchant bank under the classic definition of it, which frankly, there used to be a lot of. There were a lot of them in the United Kingdom, but there are almost none now. So we like the way we're positioned with those two main efforts, and there's a lot of synergy between the two, and it's worked out great.
That's amazing. Now, Warren, there's an amazing video on YouTube that captures the moment you were named the CEO of Stevens Inc. This was back in 1986 on your 29th birthday. What do you remember about that day?
Well, it's almost a miracle that video even exists. Actually, our oldest son, Miles, found it looking through some old interviews and whatnot that we had. I didn't know it existed, but it was obviously a great day for me, but it was odd in the sense I didn't really know what was going on. Harriet and I had been out of town, and I got this very opaque call that said, "Hey, you need to get back. There's going to be a company-wide meeting at 7 or 7:30 in the morning, and you got to be there." And I was going, "Okay, what's going on?" And basically nobody would tell me. So when I went, I knew something was up. I didn't know what it was, and then Dad named me the CEO, which at age 29 was too early to do. But, I think he was still there, very much involved, and my uncle was too. So they figured if I messed up, they could come in and either straighten me out or straighten up the mistakes I made. But, my wife, Harriet, wasn't even there because I didn't know what to tell her. I didn't know what it was about. And she was pregnant. And so I went back to the office and I called her and I said, "You're not going to believe this." So she was delighted when our oldest found this video because she'd never even seen it.
Wow. They say history is the best judge, and I think history shows that your dad made a great decision.
Well, it's been great. We've had a great team of people around us over the years, and do you know as well as anyone, it's teamwork that makes things happen. And we've had people who have a lot of longevity at the firm. They understand what we're trying to do. They believe in it, and I just have to get out of their way a lot of times now, which is great. They're ready to, they know what they're doing, and they're headed down the we're all headed down the same highway, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. It has been said that your dad knew the firm had to make a change, and you were the embodiment of change. What is it you think that your dad saw in you that made him appoint you CEO at such a young age?
I don't know. The I think there was a general impression that after my dad and uncle passed on or retired or whatever, that the firm would not be in a position to continue. And I wanted to make sure that was not the case, and I wanted to preserve their legacy, because it's really remarkable to me that this firm is based in one of the most unlikely places ever, Little Rock, Arkansas. And what they accomplished, uh, in their careers, I wanted to make sure that people could see what the foundation was that they gave us. So to do that, we had to add people. We had to hire senior people, and again, as well as I do, hiring people is not an exact science. You don't bat 1,000, but we had a pretty good batting average, in hiring people, and then helping us grow the firm. And it's been, I don't know if he saw that or not, but that's always what I've wanted to do.
No, absolutely. Now, Warren, you're the architect of This is Capitalism, the educational video series. So obviously you're a fan of capitalism. But what does capitalism mean to you?
Well, it means to me the freedom for individuals to pursue their goals and objectives financially without any constraints within you stay within the legal constraints, but you're free to do whatever it is you think is in your best interest. And there's so many wonderful stories about individuals doing that, building companies, creating a lot of wealth for their families, but also their employees, and then having a great effect on their communities. And we're frankly just one example of that. I mean, my uncle started our firm in 1933 and really had a minimal education. I'm pretty, he never got past the eighth grade. And for him to have accomplished what he did, and then be in a position to where he helped my dad go to a high school, and it was actually a military school in Columbia, Tennessee, be the first person to graduate from in the family from college. And people have that opportunity in capitalism, and in other more state controlled economies, they don't have that. And I think it's a shame, because the vast majority of individuals left to their own know what it is they want to do, and they're passionate about it, and they want to be successful. And successful doesn't necessarily mean making a great deal of money, but they do well. They can support their families and be a productive member of society. And that's what capitalism offers. And it's done it better than any other system ever. And it's pretty amazing to me that capitalism is under attack by many today in favor of more of a state controlled economy, when there's been no instance in history where the state controlled economies perform nearly as well as the free enterprise systems. So my only conclusion about that is people have forgotten. When I was growing up, you had this stark division between the Soviet Union and the Eastern European economies and countries. and the so-called Western countries. And there was no question what was better for the citizens and which system offered more freedom for individuals. We don't have that comparison these days. And so people kind of want to pursue a more of a utopian society that I understand their desire. It just doesn't work. That's the reason we have the This is Capitalism videos and podcasts to show people what can be done and what has been done.
And I've had an opportunity to watch just about all of your educational series videos, and they are excellent. And when we were together last time, we talked about how capitalism and philanthropy kind of tie together. Could you elaborate on that from your perspective?
I would love to. Most Americans give to charitable organizations. They give to their churches, they give to organizations they're interested in, and they give to them primarily in their own community. And the ability to do that and support your own community is really the backbone of this country. I don't remember the exact statistics, but the amount of money Americans give away is frankly an astounding amount, much more than any other country anywhere in the world. Even in places that you would think they might be generous, like the so-called former Western countries like France or on the continent of Europe and even the UK, they tend to look for the government to take care of all their needs and the needs of the various communities. And I just think that would be a shame if we lost that. And Arkansas is a great example of that. I mean, we give to organizations outside of Arkansas, but the vast majority of what we give away is in Arkansas. And you don't have to look very far to see the impact of successful Arkansans and their philanthropy in the state. I mean, obviously, the greatest example of that is the Waltons and the Walton Foundation and the Walton family. And we've certainly tried to do our part on that as well. And I know others have too. But we joked about it when we were together last week. There's a great philanthropist. You see that often when somebody dies, a notable person, and they say noted philanthropist passes away. Well, either that person or someone very closely related to that person was a very successful capitalist not too long before them, because you can't be a philanthropist without the success in business.
Right. You're absolutely correct. And speaking of philanthropy, you and your wife, Harriet, are the co-chairs for the Arkansas Museum of Fine Arts $128 million capital campaign. So tell us, where does your affinity for arts come from, and why has this been such an important project for you and your wife?
Well, Dee, we've actually increased the goal. It was 128 million. Well, there's a long story about that. I mean, we started at about 45 million, thinking that's what we could do, and then we raised the goal to 128, and now the goal is 142, and we've actually raised 136 million towards that. And this is a great public-private partnership with the city of Little Rock, who owns the actual buildings, being very supportive and giving us through a bond issue a little over $31 million. But as you can see, or you can hear, we've raised over $100 million outside of that. And that's really a testament to both the city leaders, but also the people who are given to support it. They get what we're trying to do. And I will tell you, Dee, when Harry and I first moved here, I'm moving back and her moving here for the first time, we got really involved in the then Arkansas Arts Center, basically the entry level. I mean, Harriet was a volunteer helping to do receptions for the exhibition openings. She would actually do the food and the flowers. I would go down there and serve. They have every other year big fundraiser called Tabriz, and Harriet and I volunteered to be servers at that. A lot of our friends did it, And frankly, the Art Center at that time was the best cultural institution in the state of Arkansas. So that was in the early 80s. And it was easy to see that and to want to get involved in it. And over the years, there have been other cultural institutions who have come up, and I'm happy for them. But the Art Center had lost a lot of its luster, if you will. And we both have loved art. We've been collectors since our early days of being married, and it's just a wonderful thing to be a part of, to be inspired by great artists or great art, even if you can't collect, if you just get to go to exhibitions and go to museums. So we want to make sure that the now Arkansas Museum of Fine Arts is in a position to do that well into the 21st century, because our museum does so many important things. I mean, we have theater that has been geared towards school-age children for decades. We have an art school where people can go in and take drawing classes, pottery classes, woodworking classes, ceramic classes, all kinds of things. And that's something that a lot of museums don't have, and we're fortunate to have all that. But this new facility, which it really is a new facility, is not only going to be architecturally very, very significant, because it's the architectural group we're using has been a MacArthur Genius Award winner, and just does things literally all over the world. And it's a stunning building, but it's also going to be a very modern building and be able to accommodate all of the things the museum wants to offer in different programmings. And so, it's important not just for Little Rock, it's important for Central Arkansas and the state of Arkansas, I think, to have all of that. And we have been working hard at it. Harriet's also chair of the building committee. We're both on the foundation board and, of course, co-chairs of the capital campaign. And I must say that the generosity of Arkansans is really astounding. We've asked people to support that project who are not historically donors to the arts or to the museum, and they have definitely stepped forward and said, "I get what you're trying to do. We're in," and given significant amounts of money.
Wow, I mean, it's such a great project. A project that's really, as you stated, it's important to not just Little Rock and Central Arkansas, but a very good project for the entire state and the entire region, actually.
Well, you're right. The region, I should have put that in there. You're absolutely right. The region is going to be a beneficiary as well.
Absolutely. And I know that your dad was the former chairman of Augusta National, and so there you kind of inherited a love of golf. And what lessons have you learned from golf that you have been able to apply to business and life?
You're right. I mean, I got exposed to golf when I was very young and have loved it ever since. And of course, Dad and I played a lot of golf, particularly when I was a teenager, which is great because it's sometimes hard for parents and their teenage kids to find something they want to do together. And we didn't at that time. We didn't really hunt or fish together. We did that later in our lives. But I played. So when my parents divorced, and when I would come visit my dad, particularly in the summertime, he and I would go play golf on the weekends. But I'd play with his friends. So I would play golf with his golf group, who were business people and lawyers and doctors, and I knew them, but I didn't really, I never really spent any time with them like that. It was a great experience for a teenager to watch their joking around together, but knowing as a teenager, knowing, no one ever crossed a line, and they were very supportive of each other. And golf is a great, unique game in that there are other games like this, but golf is you. It's you versus the golf course. You're not playing an opponent per se. You're really playing yourself. And I think if you hear people particularly the PGA professionals and the LPGA professionals talk about it. They never say, well, I beat so and so, or you beat the golf course and you conquer your own fears, if you will, and doubts. And that goes back to all of the great players. And I read a very good book on the great Bob Jones, the amateur who won the Grand Slam in the 30s. His battle was an inner battle. He would get extremely nervous. He would lose weight during tournaments, and he really had to conquer his fears. And even today, you hear that on a PGA or an LPGA telecast is the announcers who have been in that position on the tour say, well, you just have to steady your nerves, breathe deeply, and you're thinking, what's that about? But it's very true. And, it's not just true in golf. If you watch a lot of the best free throw shooters in the NBA, when they get on that line, the last thing they do is they take a deep breath and then they let it go. It's a little bit like basketball is a completely different sport. First of all, it's a team sport and it's a wonderful sport, but it's so fast. The great thing, bad thing about golf is you hit a shot, then you got time to think about your next one. And, and all kinds of crazy thoughts can run in your head during that interval. But you have to learn to deal with it. So I learned how to have respect for everybody playing golf and on a golf course, and that carries over to life. It's not just golf. I mean, I think that's what the first tee tries to do is teach. They say life lessons, and I think they do. It's a game of a certain amount of golf etiquette, which can carry over to life, and gentlemanly behavior. And even though a lot of young girls and grown women play the game, I think that's an accurate description. It's a game that trains you in life.
I couldn't agree with you more. I don't get to play as much as I used to, but it's a game that really teaches you a lot of discipline and kind of bring out that inner competitiveness of you.
It sure does.
I'm going to take a pivot back towards business just a little bit here and want to go back to 2008. And so your company is famously known for weathering the 2008 economic downturn without any government assistance. Your father, Jack, was once quoted as saying, no matter what happens today, if you can survive, you can always come back tomorrow and have a chance at success. During the financial crisis of 2008, you sent out a memo to your employees saying that the crisis was a historic opportunity. And in fact, your firm added additional employees during this time. How did your father's words shape your belief that times of crisis could also be an opportunity for growth?
Dee, I'd love to tell you we could see the 08, 09 crisis coming, but like the vast majority of people, we didn't. And you really never see these things coming. It was my uncle and dad's experience. It's been my experience. Is you just don't see it until it's upon you. And in the financial services industry, things happen really, really fast. And you have to stay prepared for that. And the only way to do that is to have a modest amount of debt on your business, because that's what gets so many firms in trouble. If they have too much debt leverage on their balance sheet, they can't refinance it in a crisis. And that's what happened in 08 and 09. So many firms had debt to equity of 30 to 1 or even higher. And there's a theory that goes around is it seems like every 20 or 30 years or so that, well, we're very diversified and all these assets won't go down at the same time because there's such different categories. That's a fallacy. We saw that in 08 and 09. We've seen it before. At 30 to 1, if your assets go down 3% for any reason at all, you're basically out of business because your equity is going to be wiped out. And we just have never put ourselves in that type of position, and frankly, we never will, because we're so focused on that. What you were saying, what Dad said, as long as you have the ability to come back the next day, you can be successful from there. What you can't do is start over. You can start over in a lot of businesses and be fine. In our business, that's really not an option.
Very, very interesting perspective there, Warren. Obviously the 2008 economic crisis was one thing, and then we roll into 2020 and get caught off guard once again with the COVID-19 pandemic. What has been, the greatest challenge you faced within your company during COVID-19?
I would have to say the thing we are focused on is a lot of our younger, newer employees are not getting the mentoring and the exposure that they otherwise would have if we were all back in the office, because 85% of our employees are working remotely. It's a testament to our team, many of whom, as I said, have been here, our management team, senior management team, many of whom have been around our firm for a long time, that it's worked as well as it has. And I think that's one of the reasons it has worked so well, is we've been we've worked together so long. We have a great degree of trust and understanding of what we're all trying to do and what various departments are doing and how they all work together. But the young people, we think, have suffered, and some of our not young people, some of our just regular employees have suffered as well, in the sense. So if they worked in larger cities, let's take some people in our New York offices, and they're working in a very small apartment in New York, and some of them actually got depressed, just in there working and living and working and not doing anything. And I certainly understand that. I think the mental health of a lot of people, not just in our firm, is going to be something that we'll be dealing with long after the virus is under control, and which seems thankfully to be happening, at least in the U.S. and hopefully around the world.
Right. Earlier in our conversation, I mentioned that you've been running the firm for over 30 years, and obviously you're not doing it for the money anymore. So what's your inspiration to get up every day and still go to work and keep pushing forward in the business?
Well, I just think my goal has been the same all along, as I want people to understand what my father and uncle accomplished in giving us such a great foundation to build from, and what we can do. And there's no shortage of opportunity. We've been able to attract a lot of great people, getting to work with our internal team, but then also with individuals and of course corporate clients and cities and municipalities is very satisfying to me. It gives us a lot of pride to help a community improve their water system, their water and sewer system, or to improve their school system in the public finance arena, or to help a company achieve its strategic goals, and to help individuals achieve their financial goals. So it's just really it's been fun. I don't really think about it being work. I'm not really sure what I would do if I completely retired. I mean, there's only so much golf I can play, and the older I get, the less of that I can play probably. So it's fun, and it's fun to be part of a successful team. And you and I talked about athletics. Being part of a successful team is really, really fun. But just being part of a team is fun too.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. Of course, our spaces that we operate in kind of overlap in that public finance and arena. And I tell my team every day, I said, I can't believe I get paid to do what I do. I enjoy it so much. So
isn't that the truth? Early in my career, I will never forget it. The guy's still a friend. He was down in Houston. He was in the oil business, and I was having dinner with him one night, and he looked at
Yeah.
me and he said, "So this is your job? You go around and kind of meet people and see what they're doing?" I said, "Yeah, can you believe that?" He said, "What a great
Right.
job."
I have a similar story. This actually happened about 2 weeks ago. We were at the Cowboys Club in Dallas with Emmett Smith and some more business associates, and we were sitting around eating and having a few cocktails. And I had my intern with me, and he calls me Mr. B. He said, "Mr. B," he said, "I can't believe you paid me to do this."
Well, it's true, right? I mean, I tell that to people all the time if they're just starting out in their career. Find something you love to do. It doesn't matter what it is. If you love doing it, one, you're going to be good at it and you're going to be passionate about it and you're going to have fun. And that was, somebody asked my dad what was his business philosophy. And I'm on clean it up a little bit for the listeners out there, but he said, well, I want to make money and have a good time. Okay, who doesn't want to do that? I mean,
Right.
but the good time part is applicable whether you're in a 501c3 or whatever you're in.
That's right. Okay, Warren, we have to stop right here. But coming up in the second part of my conversation with Warren Stevens, the chairman, president, and CEO of Stevens Inc., Warren talks about the time his dad invited him to visit the boardroom of Walmart.
Here I am, a teenager, and I go to this board meeting, and I'm sitting there somewhere in their headquarters at a fold-up Formica top table, and they gave us a sandwich. But if you wanted a Coke or a cup of coffee, you had to go get it out of the vending machine. I mean, you had to, as an employee, you paid for your coffee at work.
This has been The Sky's the Limit with Dee Brown. To find out more about Dee, go to DeeBrownCEO.com. And to connect with the P3 Group, check out thep3groupinc.com. The Sky's the Limit is a production of Forbes Books.